Hello and welcome to the Isurus video blog episode 2. In this episode we're going to go through a few things. We're going to do a quick studio overview.
You put milk in my coffee?
Yeah.
Unbelievable, carry on.
Yeah, well, you don't like milk in your coffee? No. Alright, okay, well, noted. You thought I'd known that by now. So yeah, we're going to do a quick look at the studio that we write in. We're going to talk about a few things. We're going to do a quick discussion, about King Crimson's album Red, what it means to us as a band, and our general thoughts on it. So first thing to say is that Brown is in Rome. I think we mentioned it last week that he was going to be out there. He's spending Christmas with his family in Rome. We've asked him to do some kind of short video whilst he's in Rome, just to say hello. So we're going to cut to that right now.
Hi everyone, it's Brown here. Back to Rome for Christmas, because as we say in Italy, Natale con I tuoi e Pasqua con chi vuoi, which is pretty much Christmas with yours and whatever. Anyway, I just want to say hi, and we'll be back soon to London to finish recording our album, which is pretty much done anyway. It's like 95% done, and just wanted to say hi to our friend Tom from Germany that got in touch with us through a very interesting comment, and thank you, mate. Your questions were very interesting, and we're gonna make sure to address them as soon as possible. That's it for now. I hope you like the background. It's pretty cool, isn't it? And see you later. Speak soon. Bye bye from Brown.
Okay, thanks for that, Brown. Fantastic. So now we're also going to show a few photos. I think whilst I'm actually talking here, we're going to put some photos up on the screen, so you can now see some photos that I think Brown's mum put in frames for him of us in his house in Rome, which is really nice. So thank you, Mr. Amore, and actually happy Merry Christmas to everyone in the Amore.
Really.
Huh?
To everyone, really.
To everyone, yes, to everyone. And obviously, I thought I should probably mention the fact that I'm wearing this hat just to be in the vibe of Christmas. You know, it's festive.
I thought you always wear that.
Well, as much as I can get away with, which is generally around Christmas time. People just seem to think that I'm weird if I wear it out, you know, when it's not Christmas. That's what I found, especially when I'm out in public on my commute and stuff. So, okay, so band update. I've actually got something I wanted to mention really quick. Seems like I've just been talking for ages, but I just wanted to quickly show some things I bought and say what I'm doing. I'm going to do this really quickly because I think we might end up with a long video. So I bought this M Audio, it's called an M149 Air. It's basically a MIDI controller. This thing, it controls VST instruments within a DAW, so within a computer. The reason I really liked it, obviously it's got these pads, and I need it to use for sample triggering. The next thing I bought, really quick, is this Focusrite Sapphire 2i for, and this is just so that I can use this with my computer, which is not our main studio computer. So that's two things I bought, and generally we're just going to quickly mention stuff that we buy, you know, in passing. It might be interesting to someone out there.
Yeah, well, that's
it.
What he's doing that for essentially is so we're now putting all the finishing touches to the album. So I've got my computer, and I'm doing sort of a lot of MIDI stuff, keyboards and guitar synth stuff for extra atmospheric layers and things. So there's no need for me to be in the studio doing that stuff because I'm not recording any actual audio. It's all in the computer. So I've just been doing that on my own computer, and Tom's doing a similar sort of thing, basically with other drum elements and other MIDI kind of stuff. whilst Brown has been using the studio for tracking his vocals. So
Yeah, exactly. It's basically I'm going to be triggering sample libraries by some, and basically do some layering of sounds, and also, you know, working on just rough mixes as well, because I do a lot of mixing, rough mixing for the band, and a lot of the kind of general mixing work that goes on. So so I'm going to be doing that in my bedroom now instead of down in the studio, and that's actually makes a really big difference. I'm happy about that. Okay, so
yeah, well, the latest development on who's going to mix this album, we've been talking to Fascination Street for a guy called Jens Bogren, as we mentioned before.
Jens,
yeah, well. But we've also been in discussions with a guy called Daniel Bergstrand, who is another Swedish mixer and producer, etc. But it looks like we're going to be going with him now. It's pretty much all done and dusted, because he's offered us a good deal. It was him and Jens that we were kind of singled out from everyone we looked at. So yeah, it looks like we're going to be going with him. He's done quite a lot of stuff really. He's done stuff for Devin Townsend, which Jens also has as well. He's done quite a lot for Meshuggah, In Flames, Behemoth, Dark Funeral, quite a lot of different bands. The most recent one being Coloss by Meshuggah, which is an awesome sounding record.
Yeah, really nice.
So we're really pretty chuffed about that. That's all.
We are chuffed, yeah.
And we've actually got a timeline now. He's going to be mixing it from basically through February and through a bit of March, but he's saying we should have it definitely back by mid-March. So looks like it's
Clouds.
It's getting there.
Clouds, bro. Yeah, I mean that's great news really for me. I've always been a big fan of Daniel Bergstrand. Just loads of stuff he's done. There's too much to mention. He's really I think that, well, a couple of things I will mention. I love his drum sound. I really love the sound he gets in the snare drum, and just generally, you know, his drum sound is really nice, really cutting.
That's good.
He records in quite a small studio in the drum room, but actually he gets really big sounding drums.
Yeah, it looks like he's worked out where to put mics, but
yeah, he mics up his window, right?
Yeah.
Control room window. But anyway, and another interesting thing about that is that he actually was involved in the production of the main sample library that I'm using to actually create the drums on this album. So he was a guy who was involved in actually producing the samples that I'm using.
Software,
Yeah. So interesting. So I think that it will sound familiar to him when we send him our stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to be sending him the MIDI files as well, because he probably knows a bit about that program. So.
Yeah, and also, I mean, obviously, I think that really, for all of those reasons, we're kind of sorted for a good drum sound. And then guitar, I mean, you know, he's got some amazing gear and he gets great sound. So we're really happy about that. We're excited about the fact that we can work with him, and looking forward to do so and to hear what he comes up with. So that's that. What else have we got in terms of studio update? Oh yeah, okay, well I basically just wrote down quickly to mention the mix downs that we're doing in terms of review. So it's a long process. I don't think we really need to focus too heavily on that. Basically, we're always doing these mix downs. You know, generally it's me, well, it's pretty much always me actually, that's sitting there labouring away on these mixes, that are really just rough mixes for us to hear kind of where we're at, but nevertheless take them quite seriously and kind of so that we can start to hear how things will actually sound. So a lot of that's been going on this last week. Done the whole album, actually. Drum progress, I've got a few tracks left to do in terms of just some finishing touches and stuff, and then the sound layering, and that's basically that. I think that's it for the band update.
Yeah.
So let's, at this point, go to the studio tour. So this is the first door that we've got. Inside this building there's another one. This is a security door, of course. So inside here, as we go through, you can see that there is another building inside it. And this is actually the studio building. That's the exterior fan. And this building, you can see, is completely disconnected from the building within which it stands. I'm just going to go through here now. So we go through here, that's basically the studio wall. Then in here is the studio, the inside building. And there's Dave. So I'm going to stop filming now, and then we're going to try and set things up so that we can give you a better look of what is not a huge room. We're just going to give you a very brief tour and brief look at the studio. We've now got a wider angle camera set up, which I'm filming with this one now, so that the room looks a little bit bigger. But basically it's a 3x3 meter room that we've got, and you know, it works for us in terms of just having our stuff in here and playing really and writing. It's kind of perfect for that. But anything other than that, I mean, if you wanted to have, you know, some other people in to listen to the music, or
yeah, there's not a huge amount of space, but there's enough for what we need to do. So
yeah, so we can have, you know, we can all be in here, all four of us, believe it or not, and playing. So here's the kit. I'll very quickly give you a quick look at the drum kit. In later videos I'll probably do more in-depth overviews, but actually it'll probably turn up on my drum channel, Isurus Drums. So here is a very quick close-up look at the kit. This is the Jabeki electronic drum kit. So the way it works is that obviously it's all wired up, and then it all goes into that module over there. The only thing I'm using that's a Roland TD20 module, but the only thing I'm actually using that for is trigger to MIDI conversion, and then the MIDI comes out of there, goes into the PC, which is
at the bottom of the rack.
At the bottom of the rack. Dave, do you want to give an overview of that little setup there?
This is basically our live rig and recording rig. Some of it we only use for when we're playing live and practicing, obviously. So the computer is what Tom's drum kit's always running on, because it's all MIDI. But obviously we also use that to actually record onto. So that's the PC. Then this lot here is all the bass amps, 2 different bass preamps, PV session bass and a Tech 21 Sans amp. Then this is our main preamp, Rupert Neve 5012, which is a seriously good preamp. So we use that for guitars, vocals, everything basically, bass. Then all this stuff up here is purely for live, really. This is another preamp, an SPL Track 1, which is not just a preamp, it's a whole channel strip with compression, EQ. So that's what Brown uses singing live, effectively. Then there is the Lexicon, that's his echoes and reverbs and stuff for live. This is something that's going to be coming out of the rack actually, which is just a passive line mixer, which we don't use anymore because we have it all mixed in the computer, even live now. Art S8 signal splitter, which we can use. We actually, nothing's fully set up at the moment. It's kind of, we did a gig and then we've been just recording vocals, so that this isn't as it normally is set up for us playing live as a band.
Yeah.
But this, we'd have like the guitar and the bass and the mics plugged into here, and then this is all routed around the back, and everything's split to be recorded or just what we're actually listening to.
Yeah.
EBTEC hum eliminator, which is just to keep the rig quiet basically. And at the top, the power distributor from Furman, which is just a power conditioner, so it keeps all the power to it clean.
Yeah, that's basically a really quick rundown. In future we'll actually go into detail about the gear and the way that we use it, but you know, this is our current setup. It's often changing. The real star of the show, other than the PC down the bottom, is that. The Neve Portico 5012 is just really great, clean preamp, vital.
Yeah, and then this SPL, who are another great company, this their 2 Control, which is a monitor controller and headphone preamp basically.
Yeah, really good.
So that's where the computer outputs to, and that's where we listen to everything through. So we've got control of levels, we can go to different sources. So we have it takes 2 headphones. We can have our headphones coming out of here, and then it's also outputs to the Genelecs, which are our monitors.
Yeah, it has a really cool, you can see here, hopefully the camera will focus, crossfeed function. What that does is it crossfeeds the left channel into the right channel and vice versa, so when you're mixing on headphones you get a more kind of speaker type experience. I'm just going to quickly show you the cable mess that goes on down the back there. It's basically just hell down there, so out of sight, out of mind. These monitors, Genelec 8030s,
yeah.
these are actually near field monitors, so a bit weird that we have them set up so far apart, but obviously we're not actually currently in a situation in the band where we want to be using the Genelecs or monitors or the studio in general for mixing or anything like that.
Yeah, we're not using them for critical listening at the moment. It's just to, just to hear what's going on. So it doesn't matter where they are at the minute. It's not
just to make sure that things have actually recorded.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything's working. So yeah, I mean, we're not using
with the bass and the guitar, well, and the drums, we basically make no acoustic noise, because you may have noticed there's no speaker cabinets in here. The bass is all direct. Those preamps direct into the Neve and recorded that way, and my guitar rig is the same thing. It's a wet dry wet rig, so I just have a stereo set of XLRs coming out the back of it, with a speaker simulator, and the outputs from like my effects and stuff, they're all on a mixer that's not currently in there at the minute. So yeah, we don't actually create any acoustic noise in here. The only person who does is Brown, the singer, so that's so a lot of the times when I've been tracking the guitar in here, I've just had it blasting through these monitors, just filling the room basically, all with headphones.
Yeah. So I think that's more or less it. There's just one last thing that I wanted to quickly talk about, very, very quickly, and that is this panel here behind that camera, which is a ventilation system. I think we'll throw up at this point a couple of pictures of the ventilation build, what's actually in that panel. But it's very difficult to create a soundproof ventilation panel, but we did it. One last thing, let's show the LEDs that we got. So we got some lighting going on here. Obviously it's all LED, and these ones around the outside, like the Christmas lights. They're colour changing, and you can obviously change them to whatever colour you want. So if we're in a particularly aggressive mood, maybe we'll put them to red.
We're in a green mood today.
We're in a green mood, yeah. Eco-friendly mood. Yeah, so we basically, I don't know, I mean, for me, I think it's pretty cool. That's functionality of the studio. Okay, I'm actually realising there's a few more things to mention really quick. We'll just give a really quick overview of some of this stuff, and then we'll talk more about it later. So in the walls, all of these walls, other than the ventilation panel, what we've got is rock wool. So if you look here behind these sheets, you can see some of it poking out there. There's the proof. There is rock wool behind there. So the reason we got that there is for acoustics. We actually did a calculation of the density of the rock wool in the amount of space that we had to put it in, and we sorted it out so that it's actually a fairly flat frequency response we've got in this room, which is absolutely vital, because this is where we're actually recording vocals. And I think that's it. I think that wraps it up for today. Obviously we'll go into more depth later on in later videos, but for now that's it, and back to Dave and Tom in the studio.
We are in the studio.
Right, so that was just a quick look at our studio. We'll probably do other videos in the future when we'll go into stuff in a bit more detail, actually, tell you all what we use the gear for specifically, specific parts of it, and what our signal chain is and stuff, if people are interested. But that was just a quick look, so you could actually see inside the studio, effectively. So now what we want to do is talk about another very influential album for both of us, especially. I mean, Brown isn't such a big fan of King Crimson. He does like them, but King Crimson, for me and Tom, are a band we both listen to for
a hell of a long time, really. So this is, see if you can see this, King Crimson's Red, which is 1974, and actually one of the smallest King Crimson lineups ever, really. Just 3 of them, just Bill Bruford, Robert Fripp and John Weston, who's bass and vocals. Robert Fripp guitar, obviously, and Bill Bruford drums. Was this Bruford's first album for Crimson?
No, it wasn't actually. I thought it was,
No,
but no,
second,
it wasn't.
Maybe.
Yeah, because he did. I think he did Starless and Bible Black. I'm not sure actually.
I don't know if he did.
You carry on. I'll Google that.
Yeah, but yeah, it's they had quite a few other people play on it, like David Cross violin. They had a few various other people that we got here. Yeah, David Cross violin, Mel Collins saxophone, Ian MacDonald alto saxophone, Robert Miller oboe, and Mark Sharrig on the cornet. So they had a few additional kind of lead instruments on certain elements of it. But it's a really cool album. It's very got a very good atmosphere. There's quite a lot of improvisation in it, especially Providence. That's a bit OTT at points, you know, with the kind of improvised elements. But for me personally, this has got one of my favourite songs of all time on it, which is Starless, which is a song they actually wrote for the album Starless and Bible Black, but it never got finished, or for whatever reason they didn't use it. So then 2 albums later, they revisited it and added a really cool kind of breakdown section to it, kind of stretched the song out a bit more, put more elements into it. It's a really cool track. If you haven't heard it, you should listen to it. It has this sort of motif phrase that it begins with, which sort of breaks down, then it ends up into more of a song, and then they have this really cool kind of jazz breakdown that happens from it, everything dropping away, and then you just have this kind of bass line that comes in, and they just slowly build up the layers with this really eerie, really high, sort of really dissonant guitar, and they keep building up and up and up. The drums come in, this kind of slow pulse, and then it just breaks this sort of freeform jazz section, which builds and builds and builds, and then just breaks back into the initial starting refrain, kind of played in a lot bigger, more powerful way with violins and all sorts. And, yeah, it's just a really cool song. Great use of dynamics, the way the song kind of moves through and flows.
It's like the unknown Stairway to Heaven, basically.
Yeah,
isn't it, you know?
I put it on a par with that, Stairway to Heaven, and a few other tracks that are kind of really transcendental, really powerful, really moving. And that, I've got multiple versions of that song, because King Crimson released so many live concerts, like full concerts over the years, and you can hear this song from played in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, you know, in all different ways with different kind of instrumentalists. They kind of switched the lead around a lot. It's something they did with 21st Century Schizoid Man off the first album. When they revisited it with different incarnations of the band, they'd have the lead instrument being, sometimes it'd be the guitar, sometimes it'd be a violin, then a clarinet, then a saxophone. You know, it gives it this different kind of, just a different look at it each time. So that's kind of cool. And Starless is another one they've kind of done that with.
Yeah, I mean, a few interesting things about this album for me. I mean, basically, you know, this was the first album that I really got into from King Crimson. I think it was really Bruford's work. So I'm not going to go through all the tracks, you know. One track that really stands out for me from a drumming perspective, and still does today, and in the last video I spoke about The Grudge by Tool, Danny Carey's work on that song, and this is kind of like a similarly influential song for me, and the song is One More Red Nightmare, third track on the album. It's the way that he phrases the drum fills that he does, these triplet phrases, and it's so kind of off kilter, and
well, it's his jazz training, isn't it? He comes from a jazz roots, and then he worked with Yes for a few years, and he left Yes to join King Crimson.
And that was what I went to Google actually. So actually, his first album was Lark's Tongues in Aspect,
and that was
before Starless and Bible Black.
So
this is his third album.
with them.
And you know, I mean, it's just amazing dynamically as well. You know, this is something about the album that we've lost a lot in modern music. I think a lot of the time it's just so dynamic. You know,
because they didn't we didn't have the brick wall compression in those days, and you've got real volume level differences throughout tracks. You get a real sense of dynamics and the band's movement. You know, which modern music kind of lacks.
Yeah, I mean, certain modern music that's poorly mastered definitely lacks that. You know, the loudness war started like in the late 90s, where we got into the -6 level, 6 RMS kind of territory. Metallica,
Death Magnetic.
It's
ridiculous.
They ruined the album in the mastering process. So, you know, it would have been better if they didn't do mastering at all, in my opinion. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic of conversation. Could say so much, and we will probably in a future video. But so, you know, going back to King Crimson Red, actually some interesting things. David Cross was a violinist for the band. He was in the band he joined when
Tongues and Aspect and Starless, and he's quite, especially in Starless and Bible Black, he's a really kind of lead player in that. There's big violin moments in it.
He's only
just a guest.
Two tracks. His face isn't on the cover of the album. You can see that there is no David Cross. There's only 3 of them. But if you buy the Road to Red, which is a great big box set, then you'll find that they have actually included pictures. So in this photo shoot, I think they probably did have him, but then they didn't put him on the album.
Maybe.
So anyway, and this was his last album with King Crimson.
Well, they disbanded after this album for a good few years.
Yep.
Not until they got together with the American singer and guitarist Adrian Bilal, who's the first time they had somebody who wasn't English, I think, in the band. Really.
Yeah.
So that wasn't until they probably got together in the late 70s, I should imagine, because the first album was Discipline in '81.
That's right.
So,
I mean, basically what happened with that, and an interesting sort of side point that I wanted to quickly mention is Robert Fripp's involvement in
with Bennett.
With J.G. Bennett, who is basically like a fourth way school practitioner, teacher, and he was a student of George Ivanovich Gurdjieff. So Fripp basically, seems like Fripp disbanded, you know, and then went off to this, I had the name of the house and I can't remember the name of the house now. But anyway, it's this house, I think it's in Gloucestershire, that J.G. Bennett ran this fourth way school where he was obviously doing these kind of psychological exercises and practicing fourth way practices. And I have an interest in that. It's another connection with us, and you as well. You know, we have read the works of Gurdjieff, and we, you know, study it and practice a lot of the things that contained within that, and we fully recommend you to have a look into it if you're interested. Very applicable to music, actually, and Fripp really goes into that a lot.
Well, he went off that later on. He formed Craft, which is kind of a psychology of music in a way. It's a music school or a way to approach music, but dealing a lot more with the with your own psychology and how you approach it, which is quite interesting. But we're not going to talk about that now. But you can check it out. Sort of Google Craft.
Guitarcraft?
Guitarcraft,
yeah. I mean, some of the stuff they do collectively is fantastic. I love that stuff. It's so disciplined, and you can really feel the Gurdjieffian.
Well, it's interesting that the following album is called Discipline.
Yeah,
you can see why.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like a culmination of the work that he was doing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the discipline in many aspects of his life that he was building up through his time at the house, whatever it's called, I can't remember, it begins with S, but anyway. And also, interestingly, he is a manager of the J.G. Bennett Foundation, along with J.G. Bennett's family. So he's very heavily into that stuff, and good for him. Seems to be working.
Well, that's enough on Red, I think. But if you don't know this album, definitely check it out. It's very, very good. Isurus approved album.
Definitely. highly recommended.
Yes. So I think now we're going to answer. We got a couple of questions from Azrael the Righteous. So yeah, we're not going to answer all these because there's some of this that we have kind of plans for full videos on anyway, so that we will answer them in the future. Stuff about the logos and the symbols, we plan on doing a video entirely about that because there's quite a lot involved in it. So the band name, do you want to?
Yeah, actually, I'll give a quick overview of how that came about. So for a very long time,
Something to do with this.
Yeah, this fantastic, highly realistic.
Yes, anatomically correct.
Yeah, apart from the red eyes and the red nostrils, but anyway, and the red gills. Sharks don't actually have red gills and nostrils and eyes. But
it's also not the correct shark. This is a great white.
Yeah, same family though.
Yeah, it's the same family.
As the mako shark. And me and Dave have been very interested in sharks. I mean, obsessed with sharks from when we were young. And it was one of the main things that actually kind of started our friendship. Was just finding another individual that's as obsessed with sharks as each of us were and still are. I mean, by the time I was 13, I knew all of the Latin names for the different, almost every species of shark out there. And actually, Isurus is the genus name for mako shark, which is it's our favourite shark basically. Yeah, but it's like a great white shark, but smaller, more compacted, more streamlined.
It's one of the fastest sharks. Well, it is the fastest shark. It can swim at about.
It is the fastest shark.
They clock them at about 70 miles an hour.
I think it might be the fastest fish.
Yeah, it probably is.
So that's where it came from. I was actually we went through many band names. For a short period of time, we were called Hume, after the philosopher David Hume, that at the time I was reading a lot of. And but then, you know, I was sitting one day in a breakout area in the place that I was working at the time, and there was a big picture of sharks with all of the Latin names, and I was just looking at it, and I saw, you know, the mako shark, and I read the word Isurus, and I thought, well, that's it, game over. It's, you know, it's.
I will point out that we actually pronounce it wrongly, but that's the way it is for the band name, because I think technically it should be Isurus. But yeah, the band is Isurus.
Yeah. Well, we got to create some differentiation. Yeah. So that's really where the band name came from. I remember when I texted you and called you to tell you about the revelation of the band name, you agreed straight away.
Once you mentioned it, it was just so obvious. It just made sense. Yeah. Because I don't know if you actually said that particular shark, the short-fin mako, was both mine and Tom's favourite shark from when we were little kids, years before we even met each other. So it's kind of a sort of link between us before we were even, you know, aware of each other's existence. So.
Interesting, wasn't it? So that's where it came from, and also, you know, I like the sound of it, and it just seems to fit really well with what we do and who we are. And
we like using Greek and Latin.
Apparently we do.
It keeps happening.
Yeah, we do. That tends to happen. So another question.
It's the intro and outro noise. Where's it from? That would have been at the start of this video and will be at the end of it, and it's on most of our videos. It's actually from Telos. It's actually guitar. It doesn't sound anything like a guitar, but it is guitar. Going through all sorts of effects that I recorded. It's part of the intro to Eyeless Sight, which is the penultimate track on Telos. So yeah, it's an element in that song, basically just isolated.
Is that it for questions then? I think that's it for questions.
Yes, I think
so. So, with that, I think that's the end of this episode of Video Blog, and I just wanted to say quickly, thank you very much, Azrael the Righteous, for submitting those questions. It's much appreciated, and also your comments on the previous video, much appreciated. That interaction, that's what this is supposed to be all about. So, cheers. And that's it.
And have a good Christmas. Everybody watching this at the present time, anyway.
Yeah, everybody Merry Christmas, and see you in the next instalment of the Isurus video blog.